Offensive line's been a major talking point for the Texans this offseason. It appears the offensive line is kind of shaping up. This is the Locker Room. I am Landry Locker. You can see me here Monday through Friday, 10:30 p.m. Also on SNL at 4 o'clock. Been at every Texans practice, and it appears in a very short time, the offensive line appears relatively set, for better or worse. A lot can change, but it appears to be relatively set as to what they are going to do. So let's take a closer look at it. Let's hear from D'Amico Ryans. And let's talk about something else, another development on the offensive line further down the depth chart that is kind of more of the same, and also something to kind of really keep a close eye on as they try to change the culture on the offensive line with new offensive line coach Cole Popovich and new offensive coordinator Nick Caley. So the last few days, it's been the same starting offensive line. Initially, they were rotating offensive lines, but it has been the same offensive line with the exception of one position. There's only one position where first-team reps are being rotated, and that is at center. This is what the offensive line, what I would guess the starting offensive line will be, barring something crazy. Your left tackle, Cam Robinson, makes sense. They paid him pretty nicely, the one-year deal. Shortly after they traded Laramie Tunsil to Washington. So that would make sense. Laken Tomlinson, they brought him in. He started every game and hasn't missed a game since like 2018, missed one game in his entire career. He seems to be kind of one of the faces of the culture change. He's at left guard. We'll get back to center in a second, but right guard Titus Howard struggled ups and downs at tackle, a lot more downs than ups. He's now a right guard. He kind of looks the part. He sounds like a guy who's buying into what the culture was or is, not was, although he seemed like he might have been buying into that as well. But he's your right guard. And then your right tackle looks like it's going to be Ariante Ursary. Now, Ursary is also getting third-team reps at left tackle, but he's been your starting right tackle for the most part. At certain points early in camp and activities, Blake Fisher was getting the first-team reps, but now Fisher is the clear second-team guy, and they're moving Ursary around at right and left. But as far as first-team reps, he's at right tackle. Then at center, it's either going to be Jake Andrews or Jared Patterson, it appears. Now, Jake Andrews has been the guy that's been starting with the first team, but as soon as they get to the second team period, Jared Patterson's there. I do believe that competition is pretty open. I don't know who has the upper hand. I guess you could lean Andrews because of his familiarity with Cole Popovich and everything that he wants to do, as well as the fact that he was the first team center before camp. But as far as just like who has like some massive upper hand, I think that's kind of a give or take. And maybe we'll get a more clear view of what that looks like when they actually play games. Now, the defense has definitely gotten the best of the offensive line. There's no denying that. But the offensive line hasn't looked as lost this year as they did last year. Now, last year, there really wasn't much competition. And ironically, when we thought there was going to be a lot of competition, it seems like this offensive line has shaped up relatively quick. But the one thing to watch will be the battle at center between Patterson and Andrews and how that goes. But maybe Ariante Ursary doesn't start. I would say that's a 99.5% chance that Ariante Ursary starts because he's been way better than Blake Fisher, which brings me to the next thing. I don't know what Blake Fisher's role is on this team. Now, heading into camp, is he going to beat out Ariante Ursary? But now I almost wonder, based on what we've seen, if second team left tackle and right tackle Zach Thomas is the guy that they would put in if they had to decide between Fisher and Thomas. And Thomas has never started a game, but we've seen Blake Fisher bench twice in camp for the fall starts. We've seen him have some really low points. Some of these offensive linemen have had like consistent high points, but it's kind of been up and down. Blake Fisher appears to have been the one whose stock has dropped the most, which may make sense because he's a second-round pick by Nick Caserio. We saw them give up on Kenyon Green after 3 years, appropriately so. A first-round pick, offensive line guard. Then we saw that we see Juice Scruggs right now. Juice Scruggs seems like he's almost on the outside, although he's been getting some second team reps. So it would just be the latest example of poor offensive line evaluation by Nick Caserio if Blake Fisher didn't work out. But if Ariante Ursary works out and they seem to know what they're doing now, then all will be forgotten, and the defense should be able to carry the heavy load and lower the expectations for the offense, perhaps making it a little bit easier. It is interesting to note that on that starting five, if we pull that back up, there's only one guy who was here previously, and that's Titus Howard. Titus Howard is the only guy. The other three guys they brought in the offseason, Ursary via draft, Tomlinson and Robinson via free agency, and Andrews they brought in via free agency as well. Patterson, if he starts, he would be someone who was here previously. But you can see a complete culture shift on the offensive line. It seems like Laken Tomlinson is a big part of that. D'Amico Ryans was at the podium. I asked him about what Laken Tomlinson brings, and you can kind of get a grasp of what they're trying to do with this offensive line as they move past Tunsil and into the next regime and the next culture for the offensive line.
Tomlinson, what does he bring? Maybe not just on the field, but off the field as you try to improve the line coach last year.
What Laken brings to our team, off the field, it starts with his work ethic. I just remember him. He first came in our OTA, our OTA program, just the way he worked. Like, he did a great job just establishing himself as a hard worker. And for guys just to watch him, Laken, he didn't have to say much, but you just watch his actions, watch how he went about his work. And I think a lot of our younger guys can glean a lot from that. Like, man, this guy is about his business. He's been in the league over 10 years. Why does a guy like that stick around? It's going to start with the work ethic, especially at such a tough position that he plays up front in the interior offensive line. Like, those guys, it's a very physical game up there. They take a pounding. Laken does a great job of not only working hard, but also recovering the right way, taking care of his body the right way. So I think he can really help a lot of our guys when it comes to that area of the game off the field that no one sees, to allow you to be your best when you step out on the field. Laken has excelled at that from the beginning of his career to now.
And there you go. And I think that's kind of the culture shift. One LT gone, Laramie Tunsil, very talented individual player. Not someone you're going to look at OTAs. You're not going to look at him at normal practice. That's what they're trying to do. I'm not going to sit here and say the Texans offensive line is going to be good, but it is shaping up. And the new questions now are kind of on the back end. It seems like we know who is going to be protecting CJ Stroud. And as far as CJ goes, kind of feels like he's kind of feeling pressure a little bit better as well. He's been using his legs more and more as camp has gone on. Who knows how he feels about this offensive line? And really, we won't really be able to tell. This is one thing we won't be able to tell until week 1 against the Rams, what it's really, really going to look like. But that's just where we're at right now as the Texans are off. They'll be in West Virginia next week. I'll be there on the scene. I'll be at practice for the remainder, as well as games, post-game, all that. SNL at 4 o'clock, locker room at 10:30. Appreciate y'all for rolling through. Always remember, when it comes to this Texan stuff, we're all in it together.